as you know and probably have heard by now, we got the secret Watergate tapes. We heard them. We heard Michael Jordan basically admit on tape that if Isiah Thomas was on the Dream Team, he wasn't playing. Finally, this is what we've heard. I've been saying this, Aaron, forever. Michael Jordan is the only player who could have kept Isiah Thomas off the Dream Team. It wasn't Bird. It wasn't Magic. It wasn't Charles Barkley. You know, he used those guys as a buffer. Oh, well, you know, there was a lot of guys who didn't like Isiah Thomas. Isiah Thomas is the 50 greatest player of all time. Isiah Thomas is a Hall of Famer. Isiah Thomas is a bad call away from winning 3 championships in a row. Isiah Thomas's resume includes beating Magic, Michael, and Bird all in their primes, the only to do that. And instead, Michael Jordan, in his own documentary, couldn't own up to it. He had no problem ripping on some teammates, putting them out to pasture, and saying whatever he wanted. But when it came to Isiah Thomas, Michael Jordan sounded like a punk. There's no other word. Why in the world are you pussyfooting around this? Own it. If you're going to destroy somebody's legacy, his basketball legacy, cheated Isiah Thomas of one of the crowning moments in basketball, the Dream Team. If you're going to do it and you were the reason why, own it. What do you owe Isiah? You were talking about you were worried about how people were going to feel about the documentary and that you were going to look like a bad guy. But when it came to Isiah, you had no problem calling him a blank hole on the air. So why in the world could you not say, I told Rod Thorne, I told Jack McCloskey, who quit, who was the GM of the Dream Team and the GM of the Pistons, who quit when he realized what was going to happen and how they were going to jerk Isiah Thomas out of his chance to be immortalized with all the greats on that team. And instead, Michael Jordan, if you want to put it on me, but I didn't tell him I wouldn't play. Poppycock! Nonsense! You did it, Mike! Be the man you are! A great player, a great leader. Stand up and be counted. Yes, I didn't want Isiah on the team. Here are the reasons why. And if people have a problem with it, tough. You're Teflon. Nobody can rip your basketball legacy. Nobody can rip you as an owner. Nobody can rip you as a gazillionaire. You've been successful your whole life. Why are you afraid to own up to what you did? That's why I call you a punk today. You had every right and every chance to clear the air and to be real about it. Keep it real with us. Tell us you were that G. You were that boss. You couldn't do it.
Okay, lot to peel back there. Oh, my goodness. Rob, how long you been sitting on that one for? I think you've been sitting on that one about 30 years. You just were waiting for the time to let that one go.
Just a little bit.
Here's my thing. All I would say is, you say, why didn't he own up to what he did? He didn't do it alone. You said it. He said it in that quote, in that soundbite that we're going to ask Jack McCollum about in a half an hour. He said, Charles didn't want him either. Larry didn't like him. Magic Johnson didn't like him. So to me, I'm just sitting here saying, I understand your argument that MJ should just admit it, but what is he really admitting to? Admitting to playing a role in Isiah Thomas not being on that team? Fine. By the way, you know who else played a role in that? Isiah Thomas, who nobody liked. So I wish
it ain't a popularity contest, Aaron.
Exactly.
It's about basketball. And
Exactly.
they talk about team chemistry, which is BS. They don't need team chemistry to beat Angola. Did you see the scores of those dream teams? They were winning by 60 and 70 points. Isiah, it was a crowning moment. He was on the Olympic team in 1980 and couldn't play.
Moment.
It was a crowning moment to be a part of the greatest basketball team ever assembled. He was cheated of that, and basketball fans were cheated of that.
Crowning moment, because when I think of Christian Laettner, I think, oh my goodness, that dream team. Or David Robinson or Patrick Ewing. You think about Patrick Ewing with the Knicks. You think about him in the finals. You think about David Robinson winning a championship with Tim Duncan. The Olympics is it's an incredible honor. I don't want to undersell it, but the idea that Isiah Thomas, who every star in his era had a beef with, you just said yourself, Rob, it's not a popularity contest. It isn't. And so because of it, if you're not liked, you don't get a spot on the team.
Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that Michael Jordan could look in the camera and say Scottie Pippen was selfish? He could look in the camera and say Horace Grant was the rat. He's the one who spilled the beans to Sam Smith, but he can't look in the camera and said, I stopped Isiah Thomas from playing.
He didn't stop him. He was a part of
Michael Jordan. Those other guys, if Isiah was on the team, you're telling me Charles Barkley would have said he wouldn't have played? Or Larry Bird would have said, oh, I'm not playing? Or any of those other players? You're kidding yourself. There was only one guy who had that kind of power, Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
I just don't think you can blame him for this whole situation when it was very clear that other – and listen, by the way, Michael Jordan in that documentary talked about the price of greatness, right? You're not liked by everybody. You're not appreciated by your teammates in the moment. Well, guess what? This is the price of Isiah Thomas's greatness. He wasn't liked by anybody. And by the way, at that point, he was on the back end of his career. And you know how I know that? Because he said it on Speak for Yourself last week with Jason Whitlock. He said, I consider my peak to be at the end of the 91 season when I had a wrist injury and I had wrist surgery. I wasn't the same player. So if he wasn't the same player, if people didn't like him, that was the sacrifice that he had to make to bring Detroit 2 championships, which Rob Parker got to write about. That was the sacrifice he had to make, was people didn't like him, and it came back to bite him. It came back to bite him.
It did not. Let me tell you something. What they did, and they know it, was wrong. It just was wrong. You don't do a great player like Isiah Thomas. All those great guys you're talking about, Bird and Michael and Magic, they all had multiple top 50 greatest players of all time. You know how many Isiah had? Zero. And that counts for something. It tells you about that guy and about his basketball ability and where he fits. You can't rewrite history because you don't like a guy. Aaron Torres, shame on you. We all work with people we don't like or don't respect or would never have a meal with. But that doesn't mean we can't get the job done. And what they did in that situation was weak. And Michael Jordan, stop hiding. What are you hiding from? You've already shown us that you have a disdain for Isiah Thomas as much as you did 30 years ago. Just own up to it. Why do we have to play a secret tape? I'd have more respect if he would have just said it on the documentary. I was the one who stopped Isiah from playing. That's what I wanted to hear.
One, he didn't even say that on the tape. He said he played a role. Two, why does every other player in NBA history get to decide who they want to play with? LeBron has completely flipped over the Lakers roster. Kawhi refused to come to the Clippers without Paul George. But Michael Jordan's the bad guy because he's going on a goodwill tour for the United States in the Olympics and he doesn't want to be with some jerk that beat him up for 4 or 5 years? Why can everybody else get to decide who they want to play with, but not Michael Jordan?
Christian Laettner and who else? Chris Mullin. Oh, yeah, they definitely have to be on the team. My goodness. It was one of those moments. At that time when they were picking that team, Isiah and the Pistons had already put their notch in history. He deserved and earned that honor. What they did was wrong. And Michael Jordan should just own up to it and stop hiding behind. I don't know why he's afraid to just come clean. Just come clean and be honest.
He was honest. He was honest. He played a part in the involvement with Isiah Thomas. By the way, you talk about Isiah Thomas being on top of his game in 92. The Detroit Pistons lost in the first round of the playoffs.
All
facts.
Right.
Those are facts.
Those are good facts. All right. I think Michael Jordan comes across as a punk for not owning up to it and admitting it on that documentary. Aaron Torres, who's in for Chris Broussard today, does not see it that way. How do you see it? All right, Aaron, let's have people jump in.
All right, GW in Cincinnati, you're on The Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What do you got?
What's going on, Rob? What's going on, Aaron? How you guys doing? Thank you for taking my call. Rob, you and I have a disagreement, but I completely 100% agree with you. And what's so crazy, Rob, is that this documentary has made me have less respect for Michael Jordan. And you know what, Rob? This isn't the only time he's punked out doing this whole 10 episodes. He punked out when he draft snitched on the rookie team, when he talked about the girls and drugs. He punked out when it came to Harvey Gantt and not sending up to Jesse Helms. He punked out when he lied about not saying Republicans buy shoes too. He punked out when he threw Scotty under the bus in a season in which he didn't even play. And now he punked out about Isiah Thomas. He robbed us for people that love basketball and who grew up in that area. I graduated high school in 1986. He robbed us of history with Isiah Thomas not being on its team. Aaron, you talked about it's not a popularity test. You're right, it's not a popularity test. Isiah Thomas earned his spot on that dream team more so than Christian Laettner, who was a freaking punk when he was in college, talking about people not liking each other. So, Rob, I completely agree with you. I have less respect for Michael Jordan than ever before, and I used to love him as a player, but he's lied to us over the decades. He's just lied, flat out lied to us, and he's a punk.
All right, there you go. GW firing on all cylinders. Me and GW finally see eye to eye on something. That's a miracle.
See,
Chris wouldn't believe it.
What I'll say is I don't get this pushback that MJ, that it was totally 100%. He spun his own story. Now, this Isiah stuff is different, but listen, he answered the questions about gambling. He answered the questions about the Republican buy sneakers, too. You might not like the answer. I thought he was very honest and very open about this. The Isiah stuff is different, but I don't buy this narrative that he just completely spun it the way that he wanted to. So.
All right, 877-99 on Fox if you want to get in.
Coop in Seattle, you're on The Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What do you got?
Hey, Aaron. Hey, Rob. Rob, you and I, we normally agree. Rob, you're dead wrong.
All right, let me hear you.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, you act like because the guy didn't make the team, he's not great. He's great, Rob. Isiah Thomas is great.
That's the reason he should be on the team, though, Coop. You just said it. You just said he's great. Why wasn't he on the greatest team ever assembled, Coop?
Rob, you sound like Isiah. You sound like Horace Grant. You sound like Scottie Pippen. Stop whining.
Thank you, Coop.
The guy didn't make the team, Rob.
Nah, he didn't make the team because somebody kept him off the team, not because he didn't earn his way on it.
Somebody did, yes. Somebody being the entire team. Patrick in Springfield, you're on The Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. Talk sense into Rob Parker, please.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate it.
Isiah Thomas, great basketball player. Michael Jordan, better basketball player. He had the leverage. The price that Isiah had to pay, for his success was that everybody hated him. He got 2 rings playing a pretty weak brand of basketball, if you ask me.
Okay, hold on. I want you to answer. I want you to stay focused. Does Michael Jordan look like a punk because he couldn't own up to it? If it was your dirty work, why can't you own up to it? Answer that question.
Fair. That's fair. I would have enjoyed if Michael did say that, but at the same time, I don't think he owes that to us.
Why not?
Why
not? What are you afraid of? If that was your dirty work,
on the dream team, I don't think
he told Scottie Pippen he was selfish. He told Horace Grant he was a rat. How come he couldn't tell Isiah Thomas, it was me? I'm the big kahuna. I'm the one who did it.
It was pretty common knowledge that Horace Grant was the source of those leaks, and I think the fact that Michael Jordan turned down the coke and the weed and the women in the hotel room is a pretty pertinent part of, his character arc. I think that's admirable that he said no to all that. Who knows if we'd be even having this conversation if he said yes.
All right, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. 877-99 on Fox, 877-996-6369.
We got Luca in Baltimore, Fox Sports Radio, The Odd Couple. What do you got, Luca?
Hi, guys. Thank you for taking my call. Long-time listener. Well, first of all, it's pretty obvious that Jordan did all of the drugs and all of the alcohol after that one night. But I wanted to say this about the Isiah stuff. I think if we needed a proof, any sort of evidence of the nature of the documentary, this is it. Because who knows how many other things he said one thing when in reality,
thank you.
Something else happened. Say it was about the gambling. Say it was about the death of his father.
How can you buy into anything? He told us that he didn't have a hand in the Isiah stuff, and it wasn't just him. And now we have to hear the tape. I mean, what?
But you know who else is a liar in all this? Isiah Thomas saying that he was still elite when he goes on Speak for Yourself last week and says, I was at the tail end of my career. I don't consider 1992 the prime. Who's the real liar here, Rob?
He still should be on that team. Stop it. Go ahead. One more thing.
Can I just one more thing? And I thought that the notion of the Dream Team was to reestablish the United States as being the powerhouse of basketball around the world. And if you needed to show that, you clearly needed Isiah on that team, because up until that point, him and Magic, they were battling for the best point guard in the league. He absolutely deserved to be on that team to show what America's basketball was all about.
No doubt. Thanks for the call. Hey, Aaron, let's squeeze in one more.
All right, we got Nick from South on The Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. Nick, you're up, man.
Hey, how are you guys?
Doing good.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate the rap passion, Rob. You almost changed my mind. Almost.
All right, well, that's good. I got you to move.
There you go. No, I'm gonna have to agree with Nick on the aspect that, or Aaron, that Jordan did tackle a lot of tough issues, and people who don't like the answers, they might think it's a punk move. But here's the thing: Isiah did do some backstabbing with Jordan, Magic, Bird at that time. Those guys were the three faces of the team, and I'm a firm believer. I mean, you're not entitled to anything. You make your bed and you sleep on it. It's like when LeBron in 2008, his immaturity from the 2004 Olympics, the USA Basketball didn't care if he joined or not. Now he did. They didn't leave him off the team, but it's kind of similar. And then the second point was leaving Isiah off that team, I think, was the best thing for Isaiah's legacy, because we talk more about him now than if he would have been on that team. We look at his accomplishments with more respect, because he didn't quite have the glamour or the glitz of Jordan, Magic, Bird.
He's
but
a
now
top
that we
50 player and a Hall of Famer. Come on,
absolutely.
What else do you have to do? What, seriously? And he won a championship in college. Tell me what Isiah didn't do. How can you say that?
But I don't think people would have looked at him the same if he was on that team. Now that he's off of it, we're like, wow, this guy was really good, and he really deserved to be on it.
All right, appreciate the call. I'm still fired up. All right,
So?
What other Dream Team nuggets did Michael Jordan lie about? Jack McCallum has the tapes. We're gonna go. Let's go to the audio tape. Jack, welcome to The Odd Couple. How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing okay, Rob. Last time I talked to you, you had another Odd Couple partner.
Yes, Chris Broussard is on vacation, and Aaron Torres is here, so welcome him in. And Jack, we got to hear the audio tape that I think, was it you or somebody else had said that it was on tape or whatever. Can you tell us about Michael Jordan and the Isiah Thomas and straighten this out for us?
I'm astonished you want to talk about that. I thought you'd want to go into the other fascinating parts of the my Dream Team tapes.
We'll get into that as well.
I'm kidding.
But
I am kidding. It's not surprising, but, Michael is top of mind since the documentary. But I had written this, my book on Dream Team came out in 2012, and in there I wrote what Michael had told me, which was, it astonished me because all these years, Michael has been dancing around it. He danced around it in the beginning. He continued to every time it came up. So when I went to interview him for the Dream Team book, this is in 2011. I can't, it's in my notes, but the book came out in 2012. Anyway, so I was interviewing him in his office in Charlotte, and, you know, you've done a lot of interviews, and you try to think about how you're going to broach a subject that the speaker doesn't want, that the interviewee doesn't want to talk about. But Michael kind of brought up himself, which really surprised me. He started talking about the point John Stockton had gotten hurt during the qualifying tournament, and he had a broken leg, and it looked like they might have to have a substitute. This is when the Dream Team was already formed. Okay. And Michael starts talking about, hey, I was really worried, that they were going to call Isiah to replace John. And so he came into it backwards, and then he went, and I told Rod Thorne in the beginning I didn't want to play a team if Isiah was on the team. And that's kind of how it came. And I put that in the book, but it's kind of, resurfaced understandably because it was Michael's world for 4 or 5 weeks during the Last Dance.
And Jack, right here, we're going to play that. Here's the sound that Jack got.
They called me to ask me to play. Rod Thorne called me and said, Rod, I won't play with Isiah Thomas on the team. He assured me, he said, you know what? Chuck them on Isiah. So Isiah's not going to be a part of the team.
Here's the only problem I have, Jack. And Aaron, you could ask the next question here. But here's Michael Jordan had no problem looking into the camera, telling Scottie Pippen he was selfish, calling Horace Grant a rat, calling Isiah Thomas an a-hole on the air, but he had an issue with owning up to this whole idea that most people thought it was him, and he had the power to make it happen. Why? I think it's a punk move. Why do you think Michael won't own up to this?
Well, I think the main, God, don't put me in Michael's shoes. I picture him sometime in the future being handed a laptop, and he goes, Jack McCallum, I have no problem with, I have a feeling he's handling all his personal interactions now by someone handing him a laptop. Here's what I think, guys. It's not like Isiah wasn't on the team and Michael said, oh, no. He can't be on the team. So Jordan feels, this is just a guess, but I think it's an educated guess, he doesn't want to be held totally responsible because Michael made that comment, but I know for a fact Chuck Daly did not push for Isiah. Jack McCloskey claims he did.
He quit.
Huh?
Jack McCloskey quit.
Afterward. I don't think he quit during the thing. I don't remember that. You may have the chronology.
Yeah, no, he quit in protest. He was so irate about it. He quit. Jack McCloskey, who was the GM of the Pistons. But I guess my point is, Michael Jordan, what are you afraid of? Just own up to it. You didn't want Isiah to play, and we could move on. It just seemed like he didn't have an issue. Go ahead, Aaron. You got a question.
Well, it's a reality in American culture. You see it in politics and everything all the time, that the cover-up seems worse than the initial indiscretion. Because if there's anybody that thought Michael wouldn't have an opinion about Isiah being on the team, it's crazy. There you are. We've seen it a million times, probably back then in 1991. Michael could have got it off his chest because somebody told me then. I wrote in Sports Illustrated because it was a big story then. Somebody told me, not Michael, but somebody indispensable source on the whole thing told me, Michael said, I don't want to play if Isiah's on the team. I wrote it in Sports Illustrated in 1991, and now I obviously stand by it.
We are, of course, talking to Jack McCallum, host of the Dream Team Tapes, a new iHeart podcast featuring exclusive audio from players of the greatest team ever assembled, the 1992 U.S. Olympic men's basketball Dream Team. Never before heard audio of Michael Jordan saying that he, and this is the part where Rob and I disagree, at least in part played a role in keeping Isiah Thomas off. And even in the part that we played, Jack, from your interviews and from your podcast, the Dream Team Tapes, it seems like even then Michael Jordan is saying, listen, I didn't like the guy, but I wasn't the only one. If there was a blame pie, what percentage goes to Michael Jordan? Because it feels like Charles Barkley, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, others didn't want this guy on the team either.
If you want to put the pie argument, I've gone with the World War I argument. There's 37 reasons for World War I. We never learned them really when we were in school. We always learned that the reason was the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. That's the only thing that sticks with us. That's how I put this. There were a lot of reasons. If you want me to say the root reason, in my opinion, that Isiah was not on the team or didn't get much of a consideration, it was Michael Jordan.
Thank you.
Saying. But there is the other 30% of the pie. Rob had said on a previous radio show when I was on with Rob and Chris, what if they had a meeting, right? That was you, right, Rob, or Chris asked it?
Yeah, I think it was Chris.
Yeah, what if they had a meeting? They went to Jordan and kind of said, hey, I kind of laughed at that because we saw Michael's attitudes about trying to change Michael's mind. But as you said, Magic did not speak for him, even though he claimed that he did. Magic wrote a letter afterward saying, I really think Isiah should be one of the final 2 picked, because they picked 10, and then they left the choice of 2 until several months later, right before the playoffs, which is when they picked Clyde Drexler and Christian Laettner.
Hey, Jack. Go ahead. We got about a minute to go. Sure. I really want to hear, is there anything else on that tape, another nugget you can maybe give us so people can go listen to these tapes that you have on your the Dream Team podcast?
I'm trying desperately to get off the subject of Jordan, but I can't. I think the interplay of who was the real leader of the team, which I'm trying to discuss, I think I talk about it in episode 4 or episode 5, because there was a very subtle and sometimes not so subtle kind of duel for leadership between Magic. Hey, you guys know Magic with his personality. This is my team. I'm going to lead you guys. I'm the, kind of that magicness that he has. And who was the real leader, and a little bit of a battle between him and Michael that came to the fore a lot of times. And Larry Bird comes into it a little bit. And that's something I hope we'll talk about in a future podcast when people hear it.
All right, Jack, and we'll get you on again. Thank you for the knowledge and the information. We appreciate you, Jack. Jack McCallum,
thanks,
Sports Illustrated writer, author of Dream Team, host of the Dream Team Tapes podcast on iHeartRadio. It is the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. Rob Parker, Aaron Torres filling in for Chris Broussard. And at least one NBA superstar isn't fully on board with the league's plan to return to play. We'll get into that next. It's the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio.